is this the summer version of Buddhism in a nutshell? So it's always a little lighter crowd in the summer. Everybody's traveling. So I am Jill Marie. I'm the center manager here. Hey, George. And I met Betty so far. Come on in. So I just come in the first class of every little new piece of a class. So if it's Meditation 101, I'll just pop into the first one or the second one and say hi, or each little module in Discovering Buddhism. Besides George, I think you're taking DB, right?
I have not.
Oh, you have not? Okay. Is anybody else here taking Discovering Buddhism? You guys look all brand spanking new. So who's taking Meditation 101? You have? Okay. So yeah, really new to the center. Well, welcome. It's always odd the first time you come to a place when you're looking at all of this. So Steve will tell you all about it tonight. It's his first time tonight, so you're going to have to go gentle with him. But he can take it. He's a tough cookie. He's a very, very dear friend and a very good teacher, so you're very lucky tonight. Just to give you a little bit of background in our center, if you haven't heard this before, sometimes it's really unusual, and once you've seen me here a lot, you will have heard this a lot. But since you all are new, it's kind of unusual for the different centers to not ask for fees for classes. So maybe some of you called and got me on the phone, or Amanda, and said, you know, can I register, and what's the fee and all that, and you were heard. Did you call? Did anybody ask? We do everything donation basis. So it's kind of unusual. If you travel around the world, you'll have fees for different classes and modules. So I just was asked by Mandala magazine, which is one of the magazines in our group, to do a little article about our generation, or what do they call it, the generosity model. So we kind of started this back in the 90s to be one of the first centers who don't ask for funds. And so it's been going along that well for this long, and we'd like to repeat it, but it doesn't mean things are actually free. We do hope that you can offer any funds that you might have. You can do that with cash. There's 2 donation boxes. Checks are still around. You can send money from your bank account, or you can text to give. There's a little sign back there about text to giving. Just pick Dharma classes as your drop-down from the drop-down menu. And let's see, what else do I say? Oh, so one thing that a lot of people don't know, especially if you're brand new, that the center is open Tuesday through Friday, all day long. If I'm a little late, sometimes it's around 10-ish, till about 6-ish. So you can come in and meditate. You can come in and shop in the bookstore. You can just sit in here. You can read a book. On Fridays, we do lunch bunch. Might want to always check the calendar, but we do lunch bunch from 12 to 1, so you can come chat with us. Bring your own lunch. So we try to do different things that are make the center available to you. And you've noticed we have footies, and we, as of yet, don't pass out shawls, but it's on the to-do list. I think that would be amazing, don't you?
I would.
So I want to introduce Steve Hale to you, and I hope that you have a lovely class tonight, and you can call anytime you have any questions.
Welcome, everyone. I know a number of people. George, I had a class with George, and Lisa was at our visitors, newcomers last Sunday. And I don't remember your name. Eloy. How did I not remember that? Kadampa Center. We're affiliated with what is called the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, the FPMT. There's like 160 centers like this worldwide. We have hospice, monasteries, study centers like this. Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition was founded by Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. You probably can't see their photos, but they're on either side of His Holiness. My generation was involved in, or interested in, mind expansions, and we were partaking in various herbs and so on, and we had there was a famous group back then called the Beatles that were into transcendental meditation. It was a word I'd never heard. And so lots of people that I went to school with, that I grew up with, they were going to Asia to learn about this meditation idea and learn more about how to become more aware. This was what they were, one of the reasons they gave for this partaking in these herbs. But so many people from Europe and North America, South America, were going to Nepal, Kathmandu, Tibet, India, to meet with these teachers that were talking about the Buddha and talking about becoming more aware, more mindful, and so on. Well, so many of them were going, so many of my generation, so many people from Europe and North America were going to Asia to study these topics that Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche they thought, well, instead of waiting for all these Westerners to come to Nepal, let's take the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, the practices, let's take it to the West. And that's how FPNT was founded, the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. That's how this got started. Kadampa Center was started in 25 years ago. I'm not sure where that is on the slide. We just zoomed right through all that. And that's, we're just going to zoom through that too. Well, I want to talk about the teachers. I'll get to that. So the Kadampa Center was founded about 25 years ago. It started in Dr. Dan Brown's home. He went to Copan Monastery along with Dr. Robbie Watkins, and they studied there. They came back here. Kadampa was in Dr. Brown's living room. Over a period of time, we bought this building. We have two teachers, two Tibetan monks here, Lama Geshe Sangpo and Geshe Choda Gaelic. Geshe is the equivalent of a doctorate in Buddhist divinity, Buddhist philosophy. They were trained in India, the Sergei Monastery. We have senior teachers. We have 4 nuns. And we participate in classes. We teach ourselves. We go to classes with the Geshe list. I'm like a C- student, so y'all aren't getting the best of the best, but that says a lot about your karma too, though. See what I'm saying there? So we're going to do some brief meditations. We're going to talk about who Shakyamuni Buddha was. We're going to talk about some of the 4 Noble Truths. One of the things that we do in this tradition, the Tibetan tradition, is we set our intention, we set our motivation. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. As I said, many of us came here to just learn about mindfulness, learn about meditation. I was taking a class online. FPNT has all the classes we teach here are available online. I was taking one of those classes, and when I was logging onto my class, there's a toolbar, and one of the buttons on the toolbar said Centers. Well, I thought, there's going to be one in New York and San Francisco and so on. So I clicked on that toolbar, and there's a drop-down menu, and there was one in Raleigh. So I was here the next day and been here ever since. The first experience I had with meditation was in Europe in the 70s, and was kind of just would read the magazines, Tricycle Magazine, Buddha Dharma Quarterly, and so on. And when I came here, I started taking classes and have been here ever since. What we would like to do is pass the microphone. We're going to start with Sherry, is our program assistant. If Sherry is going to tell us a little about her background and what brought her to Kadampa, and then she's going to pass the microphone. And if you will, just maybe your first name. It doesn't matter what motivated you to come, but just a little bit about why you're here and what you hope to learn. Sherry?
Yes, I'm Sherry Harmon, and I've been coming to Kadampa Center for quite a while now. I started in 2005. I was motivated by situations in my family life that I thought I needed to be better prepared to handle. My father was very ill with kidney disease in a faraway state, and I wanted to do everything I could to try to help my parents through this difficult time, and I knew I really wasn't equipped. So I started coming here, and I took Discovering Buddhism, and I don't know if Steve, if you were in the daylight basement where we were before here.
I was not.
I was in the basement.
Okay.
That was our first space before we have this lovely center. And it was a great space too. But so I've been with the center for a while and seen a lot of people come and join and a lot of changes, and it's great.
Anyone next? Who's next? Here we go. And it's directional, so you have to talk into the top. There you go.
My name is Eloy. I'm a student at NC State, as you can tell. I study engineering and I work full-time. And I wanted to come here to learn how to be more centered, more mindful. Because between work, classes, research, I felt I was spreading a little bit too thin. And I feel like I'm not getting 100% of what I can do every day. So I want to try to bring everything to a center or be more present when I'm doing things. So that's why I came.
Thank you, Iman.
Hello, I'm
Hey.
Nikki.
Hey, Nikki.
I am here out of curiosity. I've been interested in Buddhism for years and discovered the center recently and saw that you had a class, so I thought I'd check it out.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome.
My name is Angie, and I'm here pretty much for the same reason she is out of curiosity. And also, I'm very interested in the mindfulness of it all and focusing more, which is what I would love to do.
Thank you.
My name is Darlene, and I've kind of had a fascination with Buddhism for years and have gone to the website many, many times, looked at the courses that were offered. Never seemed to fit a time that I could actually come. So I guess I just actually went on the website 2 days ago and saw that a class was starting today and thought, well, this must be the time.
Excellent.
Tell you what, I'll bring this over here.
George.
Come back over this way. I'll think of something clever to say.
Hi, my name is Leisa. I'm new to the center. Well, I've been actually coming almost every day for a week now. I don't know, I guess maybe like about 5-6 years ago, like I started asking like what's the purpose of my life, and it kind of led me into a lot of literature, and I read, you know, several Dalai Lama's books, and just I meditate. I've been doing yoga like almost every day for over a year now, and so it just kind of like one step led to the other, and I felt like being in a community of people who maybe share the same beliefs or ask the same questions would be great to kind of just, you know, connect, maybe deepen my practices and get some more answers and learn. So, yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hey, I'm Shelley. I think that I'm Buddhist, even though I've never been to a center or anything like that. I've been doing transcendental meditation for quite some years, and other kinds of meditation, all that. I don't know if there's a name to it, but anyway, I meditate a lot. And what I've come to realize is that is the way to achieve and get to the place that I want to get to. With the way the world is and everything else, I just really feel that the answer is to go inside and to connect with source or whatever it is. I don't know, but I know that for me that's the only thing that's really working for me in any way, shape or form right now to be able to deal with just the world. And so I've spent years and years and years really alone. I do everything, you know, I'm a loner. So as I say, I feel like it's in my blood. You know, I've been to Nepal and India and everywhere else, and but I always stay alone. So now I'm not.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Betty. Sherry is my dear friend, and she brought me here, but she's been a great role model for me in that she always seems so calm and together, and I thought, oh, and I feel the opposite, stressed and in all different directions. So anyway, and just curiosity, I go to a church and we always study different religions, so I just came here out of curiosity and hoping to bring more friends with me.
Thank you.
My name is George, and this is the second Buddhism in a Nutshell class that I've taken. The first time was, I guess, maybe 8 months ago with Sandy Carlson. And I originally came here, I guess, for I was looking for meaning in my life because I had taken care of I had wonderful parents, and I've always been thankful and very lucky. And in the last 15 years of their lives, I took care of both of them. My mom passed away in 2004, and my dad was with me for 11 years, and he died 2 years ago. And I just really felt like the center of my life just dropped out, or as one of my friends said, that sort of the central role that I'm a college professor and I teach theater, so I look at a lot of things in that vein, and so the central role in my life had sort of stopped. Right, I'd been a caregiver, and that was over, and so the question was then, well, now what? You know, as well as where are mom and dad, you know, now, and all those kind of questions. And while I was searching for that, I saw that the class had started, and so I came and took Sandy's. And Sandy recommended that that we come and take this class, but not just take it once, but we could take it, you know, a few times, because it never hurts to have different people explaining the same sort of concepts. And I was happy to see that Steve was teaching it, because Steve and Chris were both here for all of Sandy's classes as well, and were excellent in the way that they were explaining things. So I thought, I'll come on back, and here I am.
My name is Eric. I've been building a meditation practice for a while, and I wanted to delve a bit deeper into Buddhism itself.
Excellent.
Hi, my name's Jim. I've been in Kadampa Center since about 2001. I actually taught the first session of this class when it came out many years ago, before it was called Buddhism in a Nutshell. And I'm going to be teaching it again in October in the daytime. So since I haven't done it in a long time, I thought I'd sit in and see how Steve does it and see what I can learn from that.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Christine, and I'm really trying to learn more about Buddhism so I can understand what my meditation teachers are talking about. So that's about it.
Excellent. What about Chris?
Yes, what about Chris?
What about? People have been asking that question a long time.
I'm Chris. I take care of media here at the center, well-paid volunteer, which means I put all speakers in the ceiling and do all recordings, etc. But I got started in Buddhism in around 2002. My wife came to a meditation class, and after the first one, she said, you should come, maybe get some benefit out of this. And so I've been here ever since then. And it was in the basement that she talked about, which was down the street.
Thank you. Thank you. And so everyone now knows who Sherry is, and everyone knows who Chris is. So if you have questions before or after class, feel free to ask them to share, and Jim as well. So what you hear and heard is people struggle with this question about who am I? Why am I here? What's the purpose in life? Where did I come from? What happens when I die? Why do I suffer? What is the, I mean, we live in North America, so we all have met the basic needs of food and shelter. I'm sure all of you have either getting an education or have an excellent education, but you all of us still are suffering in many ways. We don't get what we want, whatever that might be, or we get what we don't want, which happens as often as not getting what you do want. And these are the same issues that the Buddha set out to discover. So Siddhartha Gautama, born a prince in West India, what is now Nepal, that is the what we call the historical Buddha, who's not a god. And I think I draw a lot of inspiration from this normal human being that saw all these problems, had all these questions, and discovered the answers. And so this is not a man who clearly exceptional intelligence, exceptional ability. Siddhartha Gautama, wanted to discover what the answer to those questions I just mentioned are. And unlike astronomers who have the Hubble telescope and biologists that have these powerful electron microscopes, the only instrument the Buddha had was his mind. And through meditation, he tuned that instrument, calibrated his mind that allowed him to explore those questions. Born a prince, lap of luxury. His father was a regional king. And the story goes that a sage visited the king at the birth of Siddhartha and prophesied that Siddhartha was either going to be a great ruler or an exceptional spiritual being, a holy person. Well, the king, of course, wanted Siddhartha to take his place and be a ruler when he grew up, when Siddhartha grew up. And the story goes that his father, the king, protected him from suffering, from the visual tragedies, visual being the suffering that the people outside the palace walls experienced. In his late 20s, Siddhartha talked some of his attendants into making an excursion outside the palace. And he saw 4 things that he had not seen before. He saw a sick person, he saw an old person, he saw a dead body, and he saw a mendicant, a monk, spiritual person seeking enlightenment, if you want. And he asked his attendant about these things because he'd never seen them. And the attendants told him, says, well, if you live long enough, you're going to grow old. Your father's going to grow old. His mother died soon after his birth. So he was raised by his aunt. But said, the people you care about, they're all going to, if they live long enough, they're going to grow old. And when you grow old, you get sick, eventually. And from that age and sickness, you're going to die. And Siddhartha had never seen any of these things. And he was intrigued by the spiritual person, this mendicant, that a monk. This monk, it means beggar, but I mean he's someone that's living, exploring these ideas of what life's about. Over a period of time, Siddhartha took off his robes, cut his hair. Wealthy people had long, beautiful hair. Siddhartha was known to be, or described to be, a very handsome, very beautiful person. Cut all his hair off, took off his robes. And he took on the rags of a mendicant, of a monk, and sought other people that were exploring these ideas of what life is about and why is there suffering? Where does this pain come from, and why do we have to experience all this discomfort? He spent a number of years, 6 or 7 years, with these 5 mendicants, and they explored different ways of coming to the answers to these questions. And one was being aesthetic, depriving their body of food and nourishment, trying to concentrate the ability of the mind by subjecting the body to these hardships. Because Siddhartha had already lived in the lap of luxury. I mean, he was born in a palace, was a prince, had everything. His father protected him after hearing what the seer said about what his future was. So he had already lived that life, and that wasn't the answer. So he went to the other extreme, depriving himself of nourishment, meditating. And meditation is not unique to Buddhism. Meditation was in practice in the other traditions in Asia hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, prior to the birth of Siddhartha. He came to be sitting under a ficus tree, the Bodhi tree. It's a variety of ficus in Bodh Gaya, northwest India. And he's determined that he was not going to move from that tree until he sorted out these problems. And at this point in his life, at this point in his practice, it's said that he and these other mendicants were living on just a few grains of rice a day. I mean, it's just they're near death. And while he's sitting there, this boat, canoe, whatever they call their floating vehicles, came by, and there was someone playing a stringed instrument. And this musician was telling the Buddha that the only way that this instrument would make music was if it's tuned properly. If it's too tight, it doesn't make beautiful music, and if it's tuned too loosely, if the strings are too loose, it doesn't work. So you have to tune between the two extremes for the instrument to perform properly. And that kind of described where the Buddha had been already, in that he had lived in this life of luxury, and that he'd spent these 6 or 7 years starving himself, essentially. And neither of those provided an answer. And so he came to believe that maybe that there was a middle way. While he's pondering these things, and I don't remember what they called her, but a lady comes by and offers him this rice porridge. It's a rice with milk and sweetened and so on. And he's not eating, anything of substance. And so he partakes of this porridge, this rice porridge, and he's nourished by that. After this nourishment, he's sitting under this ficus tree, this Bodhi tree. He discovers the answer to these questions. He becomes awakened. He becomes enlightened. He becomes aware of the cause of these sufferings that he has seen. The word Buddha means awake. It's a Sanskrit word. It just means awake. Someone that is awakened. And we go to sleep every night, and you have that experience in the morning. When you wake up, you have that experience of what? Being completely unconscious and then becoming aware, and as you wake up a little more aware. And this is the way I would describe Siddhartha's experience under this tree at the time of this enlightenment. And in this tradition, we don't teach unless we're asked. There's no, in any Buddhist tradition, there is no proselytizing. There's no going out and trying to convince people that you have found the right way. It's quite the opposite. And these mendicants that Siddhartha had been traveling with saw him after he had had this experience with the understanding of the musical instrument and being finally nourished. They noticed that there was something about his demeanor. He was different. And they asked him, well, first they were critical because he had eaten. They were like, you've left the path that we've all started on and have sought this nourishment, so you're not one of us. But they saw this something different in him, and he wouldn't tell them in the beginning. And they had to seek him out. Once they got over this criticism, now they want to know, well, what is different about you? Why are you different? And in Buddhism, we don't, there's not a dogma. There's not a telling you what to believe. And Siddhartha started that tradition with these 5 mendicants. Instead of telling them what his experience was, he taught them how to do it themselves. And that's the core of Buddhism, is that it is self-help. Our prayers are all altruistic. Our prayers are all aspirations. There's no one to grant you peace. There's no one to grant you enlightenment. As Geshe Gelik says, he can't take off his robes and give them to you and create in you knowledge. So the Buddha's first teaching is called the Four Noble Truths. And we're going to talk about that a little bit each night, because that is the core of the Buddhist practice in all the traditions. We're going to talk a little bit about other traditions. Tibetan Buddhism is in the Mahayana tradition. So forgive me if I jump around, but we're going to go back over most of this each night. We're going to talk about emptiness, which is one of the 3 baskets of the Buddhist teachings, the sutras, the moralistic, the ethical teachings, and then the teaching on emptiness. What do you call that, Jim? The last one. The Vinayana, Sutrana, Vinayana, and Chris? Buddha. Okay. It's the metaphysics of Buddhism, and that's the emptiness. So the 3 basic Buddhist schools are the Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. Yana means vehicle. Hinayana it sounds disparaging, but it means lesser vehicle. Hinayana. Mahayana means greater vehicle, and Vajrayana is diamond vehicle. That's the tantric practice, and that's what a lot of these icons are about. Is the tantric practice, the diamond vehicle. Hinayana. So everyone in this room, except for maybe Jim and Sherry and Chris, you guys were not. You didn't come here to benefit other sentient beings. You came here to benefit yourself. So the Hinayana is like the bottom 3 rungs of a ladder, or 4 or 5. I mean, you're not going to have a ladder with a rung start in the middle. And that's kind of the way we talk about the Hinayana practice. It was individual practice. So it's a practice of individual liberation. Mahayana is a practice of seeking enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. In other words, I want to become enlightened. I want to become awakened. I want to become aware to benefit other people. So it's a very altruistic expression. And then the Vajrayana, the diamond vehicle, was the 3rd teaching of the Buddha. So the first teaching is the Four Noble Truths. The second teaching was on the morals, the ethics and moral foundations, and then the 3rd one was on emptiness. Briefly, emptiness is usually talked about on the last night, and it's such a vast topic. We're going to talk about it a little bit every night. Emptiness is the idea that things don't exist the way we think they do. And if you've heard or read a little bit about Buddhism, you often will hear that. Well, Buddhists don't believe anything exists. Buddhists talk about all this suffering, and Buddhists talk about all this death, and Buddhists don't think that things exist. None of those things are accurate. The idea of emptiness is that things don't exist inherently. They don't exist from their own side, which just means that we label things, name things, and then automatically project attributes based on that label. And this was the root cause of the first of the Four Noble Truths. So I don't have the whiteboard tonight because the group that's going to India in October is using the whiteboard planning their trip. But we're going to work on that each night after tonight. The first noble truth is the truth of suffering. This was what the Buddha realized when he left the palace and he saw this dead person, this sick person, this old person, this mendicant. The truth of suffering. There is suffering. The word that is used, it's a Sanskrit word, it's dukkha. So the word suffering sounds to the English, to the American English-speaking ear, we already have a label for that in our own mind, what that means. So I think it's helpful to go back to the original translation. Dukkha can be translated many different ways in that it's dissatisfaction. It's not just suffering. It's dissatisfaction. Sherry, that you're so kind, but I don't know that we want to do all that. Oh, you got that one. Okay, thanks. So dissatisfaction, problems. That's suffering. So the first one is the truth. And I apologize for my handwriting. And I'm going to have it on a slide, and I'm actually going to give you a handout later on that I won't have this on. So this is what the Buddha saw when he left the palace. These people. So during that meditation, under the Bodhi tree, it's the truth of the cause. And we'll use often we'll use a medical analogy. So we can think of truth, the suffering, this dukkha, it's D-U-K-K-H-A, as suffering. We can think of this as an illness, a disease. And this truth of the cause of suffering we can think of as the underlying cause of the disease. It's like if you have diabetes, it's from eating sugar, not exercising, poor diet, some of it's genetics. Truth of the cessation of suffering. I'll probably get better at this as time goes on. So there is suffering, there is pain, there's dukkha, there's a cause, and there's a cure. So just like if you went to the doctor, you're feeling whatever discomfort, and he describes what your illness is, and he tells you what the cause of that illness is. But then there's a medicine, the insulin or whatever. Then the fourth is, and this one, it's truth of the path. This is what we're going to talk about all week or all month. Everything else we talk about fits into one of these four, mostly this fourth one, truth of the path. Truth of the path, it's the Eightfold Path. Buddhists like lists, and I kind of learned that way too. So there's 4 of these, 3 of those, 2 of these, and 8 of these. And then there's actually 3 aspects of the path. So the illness, the cause of the illness, the medicine to cure the illness. And then you can think of this path of the truth of the path is the doctors and the nurses, the people that are going to help you take the medicine and whatever else. You could perhaps some therapy, maybe blood transfusions, whatever the illness is. So everything here, these 4 issues are included in every Buddhist tradition. So as Buddhism spread from West India to Tibet, Nepal, Mongolia, China, Afghanistan, and Pakistan had a very vibrant Buddhist practice. In the lower southern traditions, Sri Lanka, Cambodia, Vietnam, Burma, Japan, Korea, all practice this, all teach this. Any questions about any of this? Because I'll just go on and on and on. Thank you.
I just have a question before you were talking about the three levels, and the first one is the self.
Hinayana.
And then the middle one, but you didn't say what the last one was.
Vajrayana is the tantric. It's the literal translation is diamond vehicle. So these, you think of these just like a boat crossing a river. The Vajrayana, the diamond vehicle, the tantric is fast. That's what they teach. You can't start there, but they say that it takes 3 eons to become enlightened on this path. But in the tantric, the Vajrayana, the diamond vehicle, is said that it can be done in one lifetime. Become enlightened, become a Buddha in one lifetime. And that brings me to a point that we don't often we gloss over. Every sentient being, everyone in this room has what's called Buddha nature. Everything that's required to become enlightened, become a Buddha, you already have. What's preventing you from becoming a Buddha or becoming enlightened, for seeing things that really exist, is this. This is causing, this suffering that we all have is causing these obscurations, that word that they use, and preventing us from seeing things as they really are. What causes this dukkha is our attachment to things that are not going to last. So I think it's a good time to talk about what makes us happy. Let's think about that for a minute. If I think it would be difficult to disagree that everyone here wants to be happy and to be free from suffering, not to have pain, and to be happy. I mean, what else would there be in life but to be happy? And what the problem is, what causes this, is our false assumption about what the source of that happiness is. So an example Geshe-la uses, and I guess it's because they didn't have cheesecake in Tibet, but it's like if you think that it's probably why he has diabetes. If you think that cheesecake it's good, it's pleasant, it's sweet, it makes you feel good. Well, if cheesecake was the source of happiness, then if you ate 3 cheesecakes, you should be really happy. But I suspect that after half of the first cheesecake, you're not going to be happy anymore. You're going to be sick. And so we can look at any number of things. Most men are car guys. You buy a new car, and you think that's the source of happiness until it gets scratched in the Food Line parking lot. So that car doesn't make me happy anymore. I'm now really sad. But the logic in that kind of fails me, because what's more permanent than a car? And modern life is all about getting the newest thing, the newest computer, the newest phone, the newest software, and we think, and we're joyous. We're really happy with this thing, and then over time we're bored with it. We're looking for the next thing. I need a newer phone. Well, they don't have a new whatever phone it is yet, and so you're bored with the one you have, but when you bought it some time ago, it was really making you happy. So, I mean, that's a very simplistic view of what the Buddha said was the cause of our suffering, was this misinterpretation of our sources of happiness. Truth of the path. In the Mahayana tradition, truth of the path would be the 3 aspects. The first time we're going to use this word is bodhicitta, renunciation, and wisdom. And the wisdom is the wisdom realizing emptiness, but it also means, from a practical standpoint, it also means practical wisdom. So renunciation doesn't mean giving away all your property. It doesn't mean giving away your new phone or whatever your possessions are. That's not what renunciation is. Renunciation means just to renounce your attachment to those things, to renounce your false assumption that those external things are the source of happiness. Is what renunciation is. Renunciation means that you have realized that the source of happiness is internal, like you said. And that's what a Buddhist is an internal being, an inner being. It's a person who has developed their practice to the point where they realize that happiness is not out here. It's not external. Because we're going to talk about how external things cause this. Then this sounds like this is medieval language, but what they say is the way they phrase this belief that external things are the source of happiness is all compounded phenomena are contaminated. That means is that things that are from parts are impermanent. Anything that's impermanent is going to deteriorate and go away. And your attachment to things that are impermanent are going to go away, are going to cause you pain, are going to cause you to suffer, are going to cause this dukkha. One of the experiments that we can engage in occasionally is trying to think of something that is not impermanent. It's not a trick question. I mean, I don't have a list. And when we talk about emptiness on the last night, we're gonna use some examples. So a wooden table as an example. And that's kind of suggestive. So we label that and name it. We all agree on it, table. But at some point, this was an acorn that fell from a tree, fell on the ground, rained on that, and some sun shined on it, and it sprouted, and it grew into a big tree. And then a forester came by and cut that tree down, and went to a lumber mill, and they milled it into lumber, and then a carpenter made these forms, the legs and the top and so on, and it's got metal fasteners. So there was a mine somewhere where they excavated iron from the ground, and that probably has some glue and then some stain and varnish. So if any one of those things were eliminated, this wouldn't exist. Even to the point of the parents of the carpenter. Because he wouldn't exist, and therefore he wouldn't have made this table. So what a person that has experienced emptiness would say was, this is more like tabley wood. It's a form that we've all, for convenience, I mean, we have to have names. You know, my name is Steve, and it's a suspicious or superstitious label my parents gave me, but that's not what I am. I mean, it's just a label, so if you call me, I'll know somebody wants to talk to me. But in the same way, this is just something we've all agreed on to label for convenience. But what happens over time is we get used to that label, and we project attributes onto that object, in this case the table, that you've just created in your mind, because it doesn't exist the way you think it does. It looks like it exists on its own. It looks like it's going to last forever. I mean, why would you even consider that it's not going to be here forever? An example I like is, I guess his teacup isn't up here, as far as labeling. And if if this was a teacup, and this teacup belonged to your grandmother, and it's old, it's stained, it's got cracks, and it had been passed down from your grandmother to your mother to you, you would cherish that, maybe, if you liked your grandmother. But it would have attributes that you've assigned it. And it would have value. It would be a treasure. But if this teacup belonged to your ex-wife, who ran away with your best friend and took all your money, if this was her teacup, it would probably be thrown against the wall and be pieces on the floor. It doesn't contain any of those attributes. Those are all values that we've assigned we've projected. It doesn't have any of those values. So, I mean, that's kind of an extreme thing. But this goes to, this is what he's talking about. This is what he's talking about. This is the cause. Questions? And why is that important? You know, that's one of the things I asked early on. Why is this emptiness thing important? Why? I was baffled the first time I heard this, and still often I'm baffled by it. And I'm not pretending I understand any of what I just said. I mean, I can articulate it intellectually, but I haven't had a direct experience of it. And they say that you can't describe that experience with words. You know, I would get a book on emptiness. I've got several, and you know, and I turn to the last page. And I'm like, well, just tell me what the hell it is, you know. And it's not on the last page. I mean, they don't say, you know. They just keep talking about it, these examples. But so why is that important? Well, so there was one teacher I had that they start talking about discrimination, because we discriminate. I like this, I don't like this, or I don't care about it. I mean, that's the choices. I mean, you think about just about everything that you can view and examine and experience with your senses, you know, your eyes, ears, nose, tactile. Is it you like it, you don't like it, or you don't care? Is one of those. Understanding emptiness, or at least being able to articulate what it is, helps you to realize is that there's no difference between these things that we like and we don't like. There's no difference. We discriminate based on our life experiences, our preferences. I mean, whatever our experiences have been in life, we project those feelings on everything and then make decisions about things based on that. And when you get down to how things really exist, it's all the same. And I mean, so the Greeks, they used the term atom to describe what they thought was the smallest matter. And now we know they're even smaller. And an atom, what we know now is that it's a proton with neutrons going around it, which really is just empty space. I mean, there's more empty space in an atom than there are particles. And then you can go smaller than that. They got quarks and string fields and energy fields. Well, that's, in my thinking, that's just another way of saying nothing. That's just, you know, quark is so small, there's more space between them than there are stuff. And so when you take anything, even ourselves, and you get to that level, we are all the same. We are all the same, and everything we experience in life is all the same. But yet we discriminate based on our life experiences, our emotions, or, you know, whatever that motivation is. And this is what he's saying. It's this understanding is the truth of the cessation. I know y'all have a question about that. George. Microphone. So I skipped over some of this. The microphone, everything we do here is streamed, and uploaded. So we have a channel on YouTube that is media-Kadampa. Okay, Media Kadampa. So if you're at home, if you listen, and I've missed classes here and had to watch it because there's a. But you don't hear you hear the leader answer, but you don't hear what the question is, so you completely miss the context. So that's what the microphone is. Millions of people at home want to know what George is going to ask.
Okay. I have so many questions.
Well, just pick one. Not that I'm gonna know the answer. But.
So is enlightenment? It's not just understanding the truth. It's the acceptance of the truth. Because I guess what I'm hearing is sort of in the Western mind, we kind of differentiate between reason and emotion. The mind does certain things, and emotions can come from the mind, but we talk about the mind, the heart, and stuff like that. But I guess what is the ultimate effect of enlightenment?
Omniscience. How you say that, Jim? Omniscience. All-knowing. That's what they say. Everything becomes known.
Okay.
That's what he says.
Thank you.
That's what he says. And the reason, so we're going to talk about on subsequent evenings, we're going to talk about death and impermanence. We're going to talk about rebirth and karma. These are odd topics for the Western ear when most of us were raised in, Judeo-Christian practices, and these are really strange ideas the first time Westerners hear them. But when the Buddha became enlightened, he could remember prior lives. That's why we teach it. That's why we talk about it. He remembered prior lives. There was one story where he was a ship's captain. He actually killed a man in a prior life. He was a ship's captain, and I can't remember how he knew, but there was a member of the crew that was going to kill the crew and steal the ship. I may be overstating that. I can't remember exactly what evil deed he was going to do, but the Buddha in a prior life killed that person. So the idea of, and I am jumping around, but we'll get it out before we get to the last session. The Buddhist practice really doesn't work if you take out rebirth and karma. The rest of it doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It's nonsensical without the whole idea of ethics, morality, and karma. Do y'all know what karma is? Everybody thinks that I have a friend here who has a niece named Karma. We kind of take Americans take these terms and use them as we will. So karma is not the result. People. So you hear people say, something bad happened to a bad person or some disagreeable person. They'll say, well, it's just karma. Well, that's describing the result. Karma means action. It's a Sanskrit word. It means action. So it's cause and effect. So karma is actually the intentional act that ripened later into a result. And generally, what they say is karma doesn't ripen in the same lifetime unless it's an exceptional. So all of you people have had exceptional prior lives to be born in this life, to be born human, they say. Yes, ma'am. Sherry's going to catch them. Anybody?
If you would just repeat that. If you would just repeat.
Oh, so in your prior lives, according to karma, in your prior lives, you led an exceptional life. You benefited people. You were kind and compassionate in your prior lives for you to have this precious rebirth as a human. That's what they say.
Okay, just to get really back to basics. So is it historically, did this person historically live, this prince?
Yes.
I mean, it literally is factual that he
Yes.
lived. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we'll talk more about that. But one behind you there, Sherry.
Follow up to that question. So this person that you spoke about went to become the first Buddha? Is that like, okay, this person achieved these
Siddhartha
truths.
Gautama that we're talking about, yeah.
What he transferred these practices to the people around him, and that extended throughout other countries. So where does all the figures that surround us today and all that came from, per se? Does that make sense?
When you talking about figures? You talking about these icons?
Yes. Where do the iconic representations that you see about Buddhism come from?
So, and I'm not qualified to go and explain that in great detail. There are indigenous people that believe that these are spiritual beings, that these are drawings of real spiritual beings. There's no question. I mean, there are indigenous people that pray to the Buddha, that pray to these statues thinking that there's going to be some result. And that's just not true. I mean, that's just not true. And I don't want to offend people that think differently, but so these are all representations of personifications, earthly personification of an idea. Bodhisattva is a being who has attained enlightenment for the benefit of other people. It's like a saint. And so that's our aspirations as Mahayana practitioners, is to become bodhisattva, become enlightened, to benefit other people. And that's why Chris and I work, and Sherry, and that's why we're volunteering here, is to help other people. No, all sentient beings. And sometimes we'll say all mother sentient beings. And we're going to talk about mothers. We're going to talk about the 6 causes and 1 effect, which is about how to see people, how to see other beings as your mother. It's a brilliant example of how kindness can benefit you. Lisa?
And I may be jumping ahead, but
Okay.
Since you kind of talked about karma and you said that because we're in this life now, we must have been like a really good human beings. What about bad karma? What about like karmic debts that we come to? Like, not everyone is good. Does it mean that if you're like a thief or a murderer, you're not going to be like given another life where you kind of have to maybe like heal and correct and grow?
That's what they say. So, Professor Robert Thurman gives this talk. Robert Thurman's a famous Tibetan practitioner. He's the chair of the Indo-Tibetan chair at Columbia University. He was the first Westerner to earn the Geshe degree. He went to the monastery with His Holiness. He's been here. He's taught here. But he has this video where he teaches the idea of like premoral earth, like with just the ooze. There's just nothing here but ooze. And he's talking about like these two amoebas bumping into each other and one eating the other one. And over eons, maybe they got to where this amoeba said, well, wait, before I eat you, let's talk about this, and so on. And so the idea is, how long would it take for these lives, amoebas or whatever, these one-cell things, to become human, to become sentient? Means anything that seeks pleasure and is averse to pain. It's any insect, anything that can feel pain. And so, and the theory is that as life evolved, these sentient beings that could feel pain over many lifetimes, they did some good. They created through their positive intentions, their actions that were motivated by a positive intention, sowed a karmic seed that ripened later and gave them a more beneficial birth. And how many lifetimes would that take? I've heard this explained so one question we get asked is, okay, there's a plane crashes, and all those people, that was karma. Everything is karma. Everything, your toothache is karma. Everything is karma from the Buddhist perspective. So you're not going to suffer from somebody else's karma. So if you're on a plane with somebody whose karma ripens and is going to take them away, it's everybody's karma. Everyone on that plane had karma that ripened at the same time, in the same place, and had the same result. Now, it could have been many lifetimes before that karma ripened. Children, infants, child fatalities. I'm a retired homicide investigator, and I'll start crying if I start talking about children, deaths of children. But that was one of the ways I dealt with it, was understanding that karma ripened at the wrong time, or at the right time. I mean, is there a wrong time or right time? And so Hitler, how many births, how many rebirths is he going to have to go through? How many times is he going to die as an infant? Some painful, horrendous death. I mean, how do you work off that kind of karma?
So, but you're saying, so he can be, like, most likely he will have a rebirth, right? Like someone like that. It's just, like,
yes.
You come with bad karma, but he wasn't an exceptional human being.
Yes.
So I guess that's, like, kind of my question. Like, if you're not, like, because I know that we carry bad karma from, like, previous lives.
Correct.
And we just have to pay. Not everything that we do in this life necessarily translates into good
or
bad.
And so they say it can be purified. That's a lot of our practice here, is purification. So every night we're going to set our intention. That's why I ask you, what motivated you to come to this class? We're going to talk about, in this tradition, we set our intention, our motivation before every teaching, before every practice, so it will have the greatest positive effect. And then at the end, we dedicate whatever merit, whatever benefit was generated from that time together, we dedicate that to the benefit of all sentient beings, all mother sentient beings. It's a way to purify. It's a way to train yourself to care about other people. I mean, does that rise up automatically in people? That's altruism. I mean, do we cut people off in traffic? I mean, do we get in the grocery store? Do we get in line, in front of people that? So I'll do this in reverse. So when you go to the grocery store and you're in the express lane with, the few items that you picked up on the way home from work, but there's this lady in front of you with a basket full of stuff. Are you angry? Are you frustrated? I mean, if you're, and I've looked, I've like, lady, you got, and then she'll get up there and she's got to write a check. Well, you didn't know you got to write, yeah. So that's not bodhicitta. That's not altruistic. That's not caring about other people. That's, that's putting your own, and I mean, it's stoplights. Or somebody, or the light turns green and they're still sitting there. I'm like, I got stuff to do. That's just bad. It's just really bad. And I still do it. Now, I quickly try to recover. I mean, you can be losing your mind. You're late. Your phone's ringing. You spilled coffee. It's life. It's this is life. So a lot of what we do is to generate that altruistic wish to benefit other people. That our practice, that what we do throughout our life is to benefit other people, so that we don't have to think about it when the light turns green and they don't leave. So we don't have to stop and think. Bodhicitta, bodhisattva, so that it comes up automatically. And that's how we're benefiting our future lives. These people, Geshe Gaelic, Geshe Sangpo, we've got some extraordinary practitioners here. I mean, would never say a disparaging word. I mean, you could ask them for criticism, and It ain't happening. I mean, it's just not happening. And it's a real struggle for me. Yes, ma'am. She's right there.
It seems like the second truth.
Truth of the cause?
Yeah, to understand that nothing, that we've made all this up, all this stuff
Right.
and in the world, and that it's not really real as such. And to be aware of that would help with all of that, because when you really realize that it's all that we have attachments to all this stuff, then you're not going to be upset at the person at the traffic light or anywhere else, because you've already really taken it in and believe that none of that matters. It's not real. It's all stuff that we've made up, and I just feel that that's where I'm at, although I didn't know it was called that. That's what helps me to not get there. I didn't know any names of it or anything, but I realize it's all that I'm just putting an attachment to something, that it's not real, it doesn't matter, it's just I've been taught that it matters and all of that. And so that's what helps, along with the practice that you're talking about, but just knowing that I've just assigned all these meanings to stuff that's just made up is what helps me to be able to do that.
And many of these things we agree on. I mean, we just agree, you know, that that of what makes us angry. I mean, a lot of things that make me angry probably makes you angry too. I mean, so it's almost like we collectively support our anger. And we're going to talk about emotions. We're going to talk about how we are often hijacked by our emotions. We're going to talk about anger. We're going to talk about greed, jealousy, these emotions that are still with us that we needed, you know, as Neanderthals, as cavemen. I mean, we needed some of these things to survive. I mean, just this idea of mindfulness, this idea of living in the moment. We need to do it. I want to do at least one meditation before we're going to do some meditation every night. We'll do them really brief. But I kind of wanted to talk and just get to know each other a little bit. But in this idea of mindfulness, meditation is the bedrock of the Buddhist practice. And this idea of living in the moment, being mindful, because what we're usually we're thinking about something in the future, we're thinking about what we're going to do next, or we're trying to edit the past. I mean, I'm the world's worst for reliving the day, thinking, well, I could have done this better. I wish and some of it, there's some benefit when it's professional, when you're trying to improve on a task and you kind of reviewing that experience and, you know, could have done it better. But generally it's regret. Generally it's like, but we're thinking about the past and we're thinking about the future, and we can't do anything about the future. We're not clairvoyant. We don't know what that's going to be, but dang if we're not always thinking about it. Rarely, and I'm probably the only person in here that's ever lost their keys. I mean, you come home and you drove the car sitting in the garage, but dang, where are those keys? I mean, I know I got here in that car, but that was a missed opportunity to be present. When you set those keys down, you were not in the same place your mind was or your body was. And if you think about how through evolution, how quickly somebody as a caveman, prehistoric people, walking down a path, if you weren't living in the moment, someone's going to eat you, you know, or you were going to miss an opportunity to gather food and feed, you know, your people, your family, if you weren't living in the moment. I mean, if you're walking down that path and you're editing the past, something you're gonna get eaten. So through evolution and that being deselected, those people, those prehistoric people that were not mindful, were not capable of living in the moment, they were deselected through the gene pool. I mean, just automatically. So it has a very practical aspect. But living in the moment, being mindful, gives you opportunities to see when anger arises. If you have this practice that allows you to live in the moment and be mindful, you can examine that anger almost like not out of body, but I mean it's objectively. I mean you can set it over here and you know what's that about? And understanding this, so part of this idea of emptiness is how you exist as well. This I, me, mine. It ain't there. It's not there. And that's where the root of this anger is coming from, is this sense that we have that somewhere here is me experiencing that out there. This dualism, this idea that it's two. You know, it's me experiencing you. Yeah. And that's not the way it is. It's not the way it is at all. And we go through this idea of taking things apart and trying to find that me, you know, that rises up in defense of whatever insult we think we've experienced, and this anger comes up. It's me, you know, this criticism, there's some kind of steviness in here that gets offended. And once you have an ability to live in the moment and to examine things with that insight, that mindfulness that you've developed, that insight, you can stop it. I mean, it's a very practical ability to so I mean, so if a friend uses some careless language with you, and you just get this offended that you know, I don't care what, you know, that shirt makes you look fat. I mean, whatever it is, what is that? What's that anger about? What is it coming from? What is its purpose? And again, we talk about prehistoric. You know, the anger was probably beneficial. It probably gave you strength in a fight. It probably prevented people from stealing in the next cave from stealing the food that you went out and gathered for your family. That anger gave you an ability to defend from that. But we don't need that now, and we still have that ability. This is my friend Sandy. Hello. So questions about any of that? Yes, please.
So, Buddhism is obviously spiritual. I did not know that part of the belief was that was anebas, and that it was. I didn't realize that Buddhists believe that. So,
they believe what
about the anebas and
believers?
Anebas. The evolution. I didn't realize that Buddhism believed in evolution like that.
Yes.
So then, I won't say a creator, but does Buddhism believe that all life is God, or not God, but you know, or Buddha isn't a god, right?
No,
obviously. Ma'am. So, was there a creator? Is there a God? Is there a spirit? What's the whole point of it?
So, see, I asked all those questions. The Buddha was asked these questions because I mean, so you think about ancient people, they're troubled by what they see in nature, lightning and rain and, you know, mountains and so on, and sun up and down. What if the sun doesn't come up? So I mean, so that's a basic concern of, I guess, maybe people in general, but certainly prehistoric people. So the Buddha was asked that. Where did all this come from? This earth, this material stuff we're experiencing, where all this come from? And the Buddha said, if you're shot by a poison arrow, do you want to know the antidote to the poison, or do you not want to know what tree the arrow was made from? If you're shot by a poison arrow, do you want to know the antidote to the poison, or do you want to know what tree the arrow was made from? Well, I mean, you're dying. You're dying of poison. I mean, so what difference? So what the Buddha's point is, does it matter what wood the arrow is made from if you're dying? And I have the antidote to the poison, because this is what that's what these two are. It's the antidote. So you can think of these. These are the two. And don't let me get away and not answer your question or say I don't know. These are what you don't want, what we don't want. These two don't want. These are the two we do want. And so this is the poison. This is a poisonous arrow, and this is the antidote. There's nothing in here about, I mean, what he's saying is it's irrelevant. He's saying I don't know. I mean, I mean, if he's omniscient, maybe he does. But what's the point? I guess is what he's saying. I mean, I was raised in a Christian church. I mean, it was a way to explain those questions. They had the answers, or what they say were the answers. I mean, even at 9, I didn't believe it, but so that's, I mean, so there are many questions like that the Buddha does not answer. Or there's a riddle. He gives us a riddle. And so I do a lot of volunteering here. One of the things that I like to do is volunteer driver for the visiting teachers. And we've had some exceptional teachers here. Venerable George Chernoff is this brilliant, eccentric monk. He was a physicist at MIT before he went to the monastery. But so I was his driver. He taught here for about 2 weeks, and so I was driver. And so every time I took him home, he was staying with Dr. Watkins while he was here. Every time I dropped him off, I'd pick him up here and take him home. And he would give me an opportunity to ask questions. So we'd just sit in Dr. Watkins' driveway. And I asked him, all the time, so because I struggle with the idea of rebirth. I mean, the idea in Buddhism is that you don't accept anything without examining. You don't accept anything on faith. Nothing. The Buddha says that you look at this teaching like you were going to buy gold. You wouldn't go in a dark cave to examine a bar of gold. You would go out in the sunlight. And you look at this teaching in the same way. It's not to accept what you're told, but examine it for yourself and see if you can find a benefit to that teaching, then apply it to your life in whatever way you see fit. And if it doesn't, then just set it aside. And so things like rebirth, so I've experienced a lot of things through meditation that I've learned here, and I accept, and I practice, and I've applied it to my life. Karma makes a lot of sense to me. And rebirth, karma doesn't work without rebirth. But, I mean, I just don't know. For me personally, I just don't. It makes sense. And so that I had this conversation with Venerable Chernoff, sitting in the car. And so he gives me this list of books. So it's kind of like, go figure it out for yourself. Well, so I'm at Amazon, trying to find these books. Well, they were Buddhist literature. They were books on these different stories about rebirth and these different people that had these experiences. And they're still, they have. The odd thing to me about the stories that I read about rebirth, children could remember not so much a prior life, but things from a prior life, like a building, a person, or a story about their prior life. Like there was one that he was telling his parents he was in an airplane crash, and so on. You've heard that story, and they fit it all together. And sure, he could not have known these things. But as they age, that memory fades. As they get older, that memory of the prior life fades away. And so that's what Venerable Chernoff gave me the list of books to read about these different stories. And they were all convincing. They were all convincing. And I've been taught that, if you have a positive relationship with someone in this life, it's likely, you knew them in a prior life. You may have met people that you just instantly hit it off with. Sandy, the lady that was just in here, was one of mine. I mean, she was one of the first people I met here, and I just feel like I've known her forever, and I don't know why. I mean, I have no idea. But it's really why I kept coming back here, was to sort out. She was the first teacher I had here. Actually, she was teaching this class. But anyway, questions? I've gone on and on and on. We're probably not going to get to a meditation. I've got some handouts. Sherry can, there's 2 handouts, and we're going to do this next week. So this is the 7-point meditation posture and scanning the body. We're going to do that next week. Is there meditators in here? I didn't ask that question. Good. Just about everybody. So in this meditation posture, and I don't know how you've done it in the past, and you do it any way you like. So I know if you go to take a yoga class at the Y, they usually ends in a meditation. But so I would like for you to try it in the Tibetan style, and that's explained in this handout. And it's the right hand inside the left hand, and the thumbs touching. It's because some people do the knees and so on. You don't have to sit in the lotus position. Sitting in a chair is fine. Usually flat-footed, but the spine straight. Kind of think of it as a stack of coins. And so you want your spine as straight as possible. Jaw relaxed. Lips slightly open. And the most important is the spine. So you want to, if you think of your spine as just a stack of coins, try to get that as straight as possible, and even think of maybe a string that's attached to the top of your head, and just kind of pull that a little bit to kind of make yourself sit as possible. And then the body scan is just being aware. And you will find, I have found in doing this 7-point meditation posture, just getting in that posture will start that calmness, will start you to feeling calm. I mean, not even going into the meditation yet, just knowing it's that anticipation. I start, and I'll do it. I work in the courtrooms, and I'm not a lawyer, but I work in courtrooms. And I mean, I do that all the time. It's boring. It's so boring, what's going on. And I'll just pull myself to the front of the pew, straighten my spine, and I'm at the beach. So my meditation is not zoning out, as you know, those of you that meditate. It's a very concentrated form of mindfulness. We're going to use the breath. It's the easiest because it's always with us. We're also going to do an analytical meditation later on. Hopefully we're going to do a meditation on equanimity. We're going to examine the idea of friend, stranger, and enemy and how they interact. We're going to do that through a meditation. Questions? So if you will join me in dedicating whatever benefit that whatever merit that we've created from this time together to others that are suffering, and hopefully what benefit you get from being here will benefit others. The idea is that you're going to change the world. When you improve your life, you're making that step towards improving the whole world, because the people that interact with you are going to be happier, because if you're happier, if you're not angry and you're not jealous and difficult, everybody around you is going to benefit and like you and want to be around you, and then that's the idea. No questions? I promise next week I'll be more organized. I won't jump around so much. So we're going to do death and impermanence. We're going to do karma and rebirth, and we're going to do emptiness. Thank you. See you next Tuesday. And if you come late, no worries. I want to stop on time every night, because I don't want people that have to be someplace else to feel bad about getting up and leaving when we're still having class. So I'm going to stop on time. I might start a little late, so don't worry. Just come in if you're late. Don't worry about it. Just come in. If you've got to be somewhere, don't worry about it. Just go. If you go to the website and click on spiritual programs and then Buddhism in a nutshell, you'll see these handouts. There's like 10. This handout is so important. I printed them for you. The rest of them are, I mean, they're beneficial, but these are really important. So if you don't get anything else from these 5 nights, I want you to be able to have a positive experience with the meditation, and I want you to be able to say what these are. But we're going to talk about these just about every night, because everything else fits into these somewhere. All right. Thank you. Yes, ma'am?
You had said that this session is available online. Can we go
Mr. Chris?
back and look? And I mean, there's so much that was said. I would like to actually.
Oh, I'm gonna say it
hear
again.
some of it again.
I'm gonna say it again. Go ahead, Chris.
Would we be able to go and kind of review this session?
Eventually, like later tonight, the audio recording will be available on the website. And right now, the video is available on YouTube. And the place you go to is Media Kadampa Center. And it's all listed there.
Thank you.
So I have an email address, and I probably should have, and it's, oh man. So it's, oh man. I don't know where it went. So my email is steve@kadampa-center.org. So it's the Kadampa website. Just put Steve in front of it, the URL address. That email only goes to my desktop. It doesn't go to my phone, doesn't go to my iPad. So until I fire up my desktop computer, I don't see those. So if you have questions, email me. You can have my phone number. If you email me, ask for my phone number. I don't know everything, but I can find out the answers. So if you have questions, I'm not going to know the answer, and I'm always going to say I don't know. I'm not going to, I didn't make this stuff up last night. Somebody else taught me all this stuff. So they're the ones, if I can't answer, it's the people that taught me is who I go to for answers. So just drive home safe. Thank you. Thank you.
Can I say one thing before
Yes,
we
Sherry.
leave? I know a lot of you have been curious about some of the things that are up on the altar, and I'm going to empty the water bowls, which are up there, that are used as an offering. And so if anybody would like to hang around and help me, we can do that together.
And you can explain what that's about, too.
Oh, you can explain. I can try to explain it. I know it's an offering that we do that anyone can give because most of us have access to water, and it's something we do when we set up the altar.
Water's about clarity. Jim, you want to talk about that? Well, I think,
There's a number of water bowls, 7, I believe, and if you set them up when you'll watch when you come here for a puja or something, you'll see a certain water bowl might have a flower in it, another one might just have water in it, another one might have food in it, and they're all meaningful based on the practice that you're doing. And when we do the water bowls up here, we just do the 7 with just the water bowls, but they do represent purity. So when you're very careful with it, you're not going to take the water and just throw it in the toilet when you're done. Typically, you'll take it outside, put it on flowers, those kind of things. So, and while you're doing that, your mind is going through the fact